Hello, I'm Robert Horton. I'm a member of the National Society of Film Critics and the programmer, historian in residence at the nonprofit Scarecrow Video in Seattle. I'm here to introduce the next session of our 2021 Scarecrow Academy, which is a series we are calling The Art in Noir, Film Noir, and the Director. We meet online via Zoom on Saturday afternoons at 2 p.m. Pacific Time, and our next meeting will be Saturday, February 27th, when we will be talking about the 1945 film noir Detour, directed by Edgar G Ulmer. You can look around this page, whether you are watching this on the Scarecrow Academy page or the YouTube Scarecrow Academy page, and you'll find a link that will let you contact Scarecrow. They will get back to you with an email about how to register for the Zoom session. You can also find out how to watch the film. If you can't find it easily, of course, you could always rent it from Scarecrow, including by mail, if you want to go that route. I'll give a little background here on the film itself, which is kind of legendary title in not just the history of film noir, but also the annals of low-budget Hollywood filmmaking. I'll say a little bit about the director, who was one of the many European emigres who came to Hollywood in the period before World War II. His name was Edgar G Ulmer. He came to show business very early in life. He was kind of a wunderkind in German theater and film. Immediately after World War I, he worked with the celebrated theater director Max Reinhardt in Berlin. This was the period when Expressionism was coming out in German theater and film. Supposedly, Ulmer said that he worked with Fritz Lang on a couple of films in the design area, at least, Metropolis, Die Nibelungen. Peter Bogdanovich, who interviewed Ulmer in the early 1970s, said that Ulmer had a tendency to exaggerate. So it hasn't quite been confirmed that Ulmer did all of the things that he said he did back in Germany in the 20s, but we believe that he worked with another giant German filmmaker, F.W. Murnau, on The Last Laugh. And when Murnau came to Hollywood on Sunrise, worked somehow in the visual department of the production design of those films, which are merely two of the most astonishing looking movies in film history. Ulmer also co-directed the 1929 film People on Sunday, which is quite a pioneering effort as a kind of movie that would take real people and real locations and sort of a minimalist piece of storytelling and make this sort of slice of Berlin life out of it. That was written by Billy Wilder, or it was co-directed by Robert Siodmak, a director that we're going to look at later in the Noir series here. Future Oscar-winning director Fred Zinnemann was like a gopher on the thing. It had quite an impressive assemblage. And Ulmer had a pretty good resume then by the time he came to the United States and settled here permanently. He had some shots. For instance, he made a terrific film in 1934, The Black Cat, for Universal Pictures, starring Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi. This was the period when Universal was making a lot of horror films. And that film was really fascinating for its subject matter and its design, which strongly reflects Ulmer's interest in the Bauhaus. But it would stand as an example of a rare thing, which is Ulmer actually getting a decent budget with which to make a film. And there are various speculations about why that is, but we do know that during that time, the making the Black Cat, Ulmer was romantically involved with a woman who happened to be married to a nephew of the Universal Studio chief, Carl Laemmle. And Ulmer subsequently married the woman, and Shirley Ulmer was her name, and she worked with him on his projects for the rest of his life. But there are persistent rumors that Ulmer may have been blackballed from working with major studios because of this affair. He himself said that he preferred to work in low budget circumstances because he wanted artistic freedom, and perhaps that is the case. Certainly, he stayed in that realm for pretty much the rest of his career. And one such example of that is Detour, which we're going to talk about. Ulmer made at the very, very low rent studio PRC, shot in 6 days, which was pretty much de rigueur for a PRC production. Detour had a typical budget for that company, and you can see that on screen, or perhaps rather you can't see it on screen. And one thing we'll talk about is the way that a limited budget can be said to actually enhance the noirish mood of certain films. There are those movies that they are supposedly about poor folks or about the downtrodden or something, and the sets are just impeccably well made, and the actors are innately glamorous, and so you sort of have a problem buying into the premise. Yeah, well, Detour does not have that problem. It is the sets are clearly made on a shoestring to the extent that they exist at all, and the actors appear to have emerged from a nearby flophouse. It's fairly easy to believe. The film has two actors who are exceptionally memorable in their roles. Tom Neal plays a pianist who hitchhikes his way from New York to LA with fatal consequences. And Anne Savage plays the sort of femme fatale who he meets on the road. Savage gives probably the most ferocious performance in maybe all of film noir, and Neil radiates this kind of second-rate meanness, which perhaps makes it less surprising if you learn that the actor would be convicted for manslaughter in the gunshot death of his wife 20 years after this movie was made. We'll speak a little bit about the hypnotic nature of the film's 73 minutes, and this might lead into a discussion of how the dream, or the nightmare, is one of the reference points for film noir, often spoken of by people who talk about film noir a lot. Many noir titles unfold with the feeling of a dream, and Detour, I think, plays with this idea in various ways, including having this hapless protagonist who can't seem to take action during this unfolding nightmare. And we'll look at a couple of sequences specifically. We'll look at the way that, despite the sort of low budget, ratty trappings of this movie, Ulmer elaborately uses cinematic language to enhance the story, as though the spirit of German expressionism is still alive on Hollywood's Poverty Row. So join us on Saturday, February 27th at 2 p.m. Pacific Time as we thumb a ride and find out what fate has in store for us with a discussion of Edgar G. Ulmer's low budget film noir classic, Detour.